On Good Friday, if you were there, you might remember that I spoke about my expectations for the week, for Holy Week, how I was anticipating a kind of retreat experience, or at least I hoped for one. But instead, life kept interrupting. And I realized yesterday what I was hoping for, what kind of experience. I wanted to experience a kind of time out of time, a sacred time in the midst of my normal secular life. I wanted to experience this week transported by the liturgies into the way of Jesus, this passion of Jesus that we hear and read about this week, this way of the cross. Because every year I feel like I need to experience and re-experience the story of death and the rising from the dead, the story of betrayal and desertion, and the story of life, the story of light that seems extinguished only to be lit again, only to shine forth again. This morning, as we hear the stories of the people of God, the story of creation, of the flood, of the Exodus, all the way to the story of the women and the empty tomb, we travel. We become a pilgrim people. We become this new body of Christ as we travel the way of Jesus, the way of the cross, the way of death, and the way of resurrection. These stories and these liturgies, they shape us. They form us. They reform us. And they shape our sensibilities and our conscience. They take us for the moments that we are together out of the secular world, out of the ordinary and into something deeper, something meaningful, something that gives us hope. Now, this gospel reading that we hear this year is from Mark. And it's really the starkest depiction of the resurrection of the four gospels. Because it does not depict Jesus. Instead, we hear about the place where they laid him. It does not depict an encounter with him on the road. Rather, we are told he goes on ahead of you to Galilee. We do not hear how the women grab hold of the resurrected Jesus. Rather, we hear that they are out of their minds due to what they heard the young man in the white cloth tell them. They are told to announce what they have seen and heard, and instead they go away terrified and remain silent. And so what can this mean? The Easter story in Mark seems almost to be cut off. Where's the rest of the story? And what about us? What are we to learn from this? And perhaps that may be the key question. What about us? Now remember, the women are all that is left of Jesus' followers. Peter has deserted him. John, James. But these women who have followed him from the beginning, Mary of Magdala, Mary, the mother of James, and Salome. These are the last of Jesus' followers to be present to us in the gospel. And so, here, I think, is where the magic happens. For instead of becoming mere hearers of the story outside of it, we become rather part of the story. We become present with the women. Today, this Easter day, we witness the empty tomb. We know, like the women knew, that the body had been taken from the cross, laid in this tomb hewn from rock. This body that is wounded and was wrapped in a cloth, this body is no longer there. We hear the words, "He is risen. He goes ahead of you to Galilee. He awaits you." And so, where is he? Where is this body? The answer, I think, is that he is here. He is right here, right now. It is us. We are the body. It is said that he goes ahead of you to Galilee, but that is where the story began. Here, right now, the story begins again. For the body of Christ is here. It is among us. It is us. Paul tells us that we carry around in these physical bodies the death of Jesus. But not just the death. We carry around the death so that we might also have the life of Jesus. And death means here not just a physical death. It means something much more than that. It also means the power of death. The power of death that we can endure in our suffering. The power of death that we can be present to us in our grieving, in our despair, in our feelings of powerlessness, in our frustrations. It means also the death present in our world, in poverty, in abuse, in drug and alcohol addiction. It means the power of death that enslaves the principalities and powers who serve death and are present in our world. Like bureaucracies that don't serve us. Like big corporate organizations that can dehumanize us. Like our own workplaces sometimes, where we can feel put upon and dragged down. Sometimes we can feel like our efforts are fruitless. This is death and the power of death. But today is a new day. And we can exclaim the good news. And it is this: He has been raised. O death, where is your sting? We need not be afraid. We can take the baton from the women because it is our turn. We can together resist death and the power of death, for we carry around the risen life within us. We can seek to humanize what has become inhuman. We can seek to be a people of joy in the face of despair. We can seek to be a mission people. We can seek to be a people who wish to serve and not to be served, in a world that teaches us to want. And we can be a people who work for justice and for the transformation of our institutions. Institutions that can sometimes feel like they have a life of their own and that resist our work, resist our hope, that seek to demoralize us by saying that no, death, in fact, has won. But today, we say no. And we stand against the power of death. We stand because the risen life is in us. We are the body of Christ, risen from the dead. Alleluia, alleluia.